Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Blue Abroad Show. I'm your host, Terry. I'm joined by my co-host, Dan. Dan, hello, mate.
Oi, how are we all diddling?
Very well. I'm gonna pause you for a moment because I want to get a good summary of what's happening in your world, but I do want to do the thank yous and the niceties before we start. As you know, guys, we're in our lovely studio here, and this studio is brought to us by our friend Shad, who is working away in the back end here that I can actually see, but you can't. Shad runs a company called Assertive Media, and he does all sorts of production needs for companies and small or large. So, I mean, even if you want to start a podcast or a YouTube channel, this is the place to be. And we want to thank him for having us here, and we want to thank his company for partnering with us and helping the Blue Abroad channel go to that next level. So, Shad, we love you. Big show tonight. Big show. We're going to talk a lot about the player previews. We're going to continue them tonight. As we do, we're going to go from number 25, Zach Fisher, up until about, let's say, number 33, Sam Ramsay. We're going to talk a little bit about the AFLW. We're going to talk a little bit more about the practice match yesterday. But I think before we do any of that, we should thank the members of the channel. So those of you whose names are now coming on the bottom of the screen, these are paid members. These are members who contribute money to the channel to help us do things like this and upgrade things with the channel. And really want to thank you for your support. If that's something you're interested in, just hit the join button next to the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. And that's something you are welcome to get around as well. So let's hit the intro, Shad, and then let's get started with this show.
What's going on for the internet?
Martin's been very impressive every single time.
I saw the count for it and I thank you for a while.
Great sense of play in Glasgow. And there's a vantage moment. Ball inside 50. Control! He strikes it beautifully. He's got it.
Okay, let's begin. Dan, mate, what's happening?
Oh, not much. Just living life.
You're in here in the studio with a moon boot. I'm not sure if we probably can't show the audience, but you've broken your foot.
Yeah,
You've done a Charlie Curnow.
Yeah, it's going to be last minute out for round ones and like true Coward fashion as well. What turned into 8 weeks has now been turned into 12 weeks, so I could be out for the year.
So what happened? You were walking upstairs and slipped on tiles. What happened?
It's equally as ridiculous as a Coward injury. I actually fell backwards on my son's balancing blocks, so the irony in my injury isn't lost on me. Yes, a triple fracture on my foot and some nice ankle ligament damage.
Well, the fact that you're in the studio, mate, suited up, shirted up, boot on, I appreciate the commitment.
Anything for the Carlton team.
Absolutely. Speaking of, we have a pep in our step today. Yesterday was a good day. The guys were back. We saw some great passages of play, albeit only a practice match. We were told that we were being a little bit too excited, given that it was just a practice match. But I got a chance to watch it again last night. And, the usual names that everyone was speaking about yesterday, Saad, Williams, Dow, Cripps, all good. Were there any names that popped up yesterday? And I don't want to spend too much time on the practice match because we've pretty much covered it. But were there any other names that, upon review, you saw that needed mention?
I thought Williamson was outstanding, as we discussed. I thought there was some notables. I thought Mark Murphy's new role on the half-forward flank as well was very understated. I think our big problem last year, and I think everyone said this at one point in this year, was we had no conduit from midfield to forward. Our entry was a little bit poor, our creativity. Murphy offers that at half forward. So your boy, Mark Murphy, I thought he was fantastic. I also thought no one's given as much love, and I still have him as my best on ground, Liam Jones.
Yeah.
I thought Liam Jones was another level of good. So to me, I was very excited, and I don't buy into the ethos of it's just a practice game, particularly against Essendon. There's no friendly. You practice what makes permanent, as Jack Nicholas used to say, and for them to be better, they have to produce that. So where do you start producing it in practice? For it to become game ready, needs to be done every week. So I'm excited, and I think everyone should be excited.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said, I watched the game again last night at home on the big screen, and Tom Williamson stood out for me. And it got to the point where I was in the fourth quarter and I'm saying to myself, how did I not pick this up when I was watching it live? He was outstanding, I thought. Just the composure, the switching of the play, the tackling, the pressure, all of that.
Especially when he moved up to midfield as well, when he offered that wing threat. It was beautiful to watch. And I mean, my wife's a big St Kilda fan. They had a big win this week as well. And if you go on the St Kilda pages, man, they've already unfurled the flag for round one.
We love it. That's what we want to hear.
So you want to be like that, like get a bit excited.
Yeah. Good evening to those of you at home who are joining us now. Debbie, Shannon. Speaking of Mark Murphy and who loves Mark Murphy, yes,
Mark Murphy,
and we love Shannon. We've got Adrian, Alexander, Rocco's in the house, Riley, Nigel Appleboom.
Big Nige.
He's got some thoughts on Setterfield. He reckons that Will Setterfield on a wing is a massive concern. He's an inside mid, and he's had 0 centre bounce attendances. This is the year he can break out, but looks like Teague will sacrifice his role, so Walsh can play in the guts. Very alarming. Well, the club put out an article today, and they said that he had 24 touches. So I think he's going. I think he's going okay.
I think Setterfield, when you watched him yesterday, and you look at where he was effective, it was down the flanks, down the wings, and I think he's the conduit. So the exit ball, when you saw that Doc targeted him a lot, and you can see that switch was occurring, and then it was hit a target, handball it, and move. So I think that Setterfield, because of his size, he is a natural half forward on the flank. So that's where he was trained. He later became a midfielder. I think that probably that's the thought process. But I understand where Nigel's coming from.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a lot of inside help. And I thought yesterday we saw that inside Walsh, Cripps, Curnow, and Williams.
There's quite a few in there.
It's pretty sexy.
Yeah.
That them four we've named there, like Cripper was outstanding.
Yeah. Oh, there's quite a few in there. But let's move on from the practice match.
Do we have to?
We do, because we have a lot to cover. We have quite a few player previews today, and I want to get everyone involved tonight. So before we do that, I want to touch on the AFLW, because we did have some news come through the week. We had a good win. Let's start there. We spoke about it. We've done our review. That's on the Blue Abroad website as well. And we thank Nathan for his written piece. You and Rocco did the jumper punch covering the AFLW. We've got plenty to go there. We thought Prasparkas was maybe in trouble. It turns out she ended up getting the week. They appealed. She's going to miss this week. There's a big game this week against North, who scored 8 behinds last week and need to respond.
Two in a row for us, 2 in a row losses for North. It's a tough one as well, because without Prasparkas, any job's tough. She is our best player. I do think, though, I've got a little bit of hope, because Egan, if you look at her quarters this year, traditionally when Prasparkas has been dual tagged like she was last week, didn't have many touches in the final term, Egan comes out of her shell. So it's going to be a big case now with Egan. And Mark Murphy's Padawan apprentice, Georgia G. We need her to find that form like she did in the early part of the year as well. And I think we should be all right. I think if you watch North Melbourne, they've been there's a game plan to beat North Melbourne, and the last 2 games have shown it. It's high pressure in the forward line. Their forwards fold like butter in a microwave under a bit of pressure, and then hit them hard on the flanks on transition. And that's our native game. So Prasparkas is huge out, but if you're going to win a flag, you've got to do things that are unthinkable. So they have to do it. It's going to do it the hard way. But if you win without Prasparkas, it's a bit like when Carlton won against Fremantle without Curnow and Cripps.
It's true.
The confidence is huge.
It's true. And also there's the unpredictability, because everyone expects the ball to go to Prasparkas, and now there's that opportunity for someone else. Lucy McAvoy could step into that. That's what she was drafted as, right?
MacDog. Yeah, I mean, McAvoy, she's big presence in that midfield. She's kind of a bit like Setterfield in the men's game. She kind of understated her value to the side. She was brilliant last week. So it's an opportunity for someone to be a hero. And we saw it with the men's team, like we said, when Cripps was out, players picked up. And that was really the turning point of our team. This is a turning point for our side now. Can we do it without her? Yeah. Because you'll be a lot better when she comes back.
And we'll find out tomorrow. That's a Saturday night game.
It is the Saturday night in Tasmania. Yeah, right, so it's another world.
So many gags come into my head. Don't know if I can.
I wouldn't make them because I'm a pom, so I'm the butt of all jokes, so I wouldn't dare.
All righty, let's move on. We are going to start with our player previews. This is part 4 of the player previews. We've got some stats tonight to show you guys from the practice match, which we can incorporate into the player previews tonight, which is exciting. And if you're watching this after the live show, welcome to you. But the first player preview for the evening is number 25, Mr. Zach Fisher. He's a fan favorite. He really is the fish. He had a great preseason last year from the reports. Then he had the syndesmosis injury. I think it was Dylan Grimes that fell onto his ankle in round 1, and then we just didn't see him for a big chunk of the year. And in a funny way, the COVID break helped him get back into the season and play some games. And I felt like he matured last year. That was the overall feeling from me. What are you looking at for Fish in 2021? As we know, he's now the small forward.
I think what we saw yesterday showed us what Fish is capable of. There was a lot of conjecture from opposition fans because he was one of the players that was rated elite in our team. And a lot of people with the Champs data were like, what does that? He's not elite. But if you actually look at Fisher's numbers from when he returns as a small forward, he is top 10 in the competition in his position. You look at what he brings. It's not just the goals he brings. It's his score involvements, the pressure. He's a modern day small forward. And you saw it yesterday. His ability to work in tight spaces is phenomenal. So I expect him to go up a level. I wouldn't be surprised to see 25, 30 goals come from Zach Fisher's boot alone. He's a very crafty player. And if we're going to play one less tall, like we did yesterday, we didn't have our usual influx of talls. He's got the skill level. He's got the creativity. You see bets rubbing off on him, the way he twists and he turns the snap. I'm excited about Fisher, and I think he's a very good player, and I'm loving his hair.
Yeah, I like the fact that we've got a couple of guys now who are in this forward line who, in any other team, in another situation, could be full-time midfielders. So we're talking about the Gibbons, the Murphy, the Fisher, the Cunningham, even the Jack Martin to a degree. So I'm looking forward to seeing the link-up play. I think that's what you touched on just then. Fisher's really good in the link-up play for goals. He might not be the direct handball to the goal, but he'll be the handball to the assist. And I remember Phil Jackson in his book, 11 Rings, talked about he used to give a lot of praise to the guy who would make the pass to the assist. And that's kind of something I see from these 4 or 5 midfield forward guys. And
you saw the goal Cunningham had.
Spot on.
Fisher could have done that. He had enough pace, but what did he do? He drew the defender, handballed it over him. Cunningham had no one in front of him and could just walk in.
Yeah,
that is footy smarts. And, as the old saying goes, you can't teach that.
Yeah, it's true. Shad, if we can get a heat map up, what we've got here is we're going to look at Fisher's game against the Bombers. Dan, before we continue, Dan has gone through this game. You've watched it at 0.5 times speed and taken everyone's stats and created these heat maps. So that's phenomenal. But if we have a look at Fisher here, we have a look at what he did in this practice match against the Bombers. What's this telling you? This is really just telling you that this is a small forwards heat map.
It's sending us a small forwards heat map. It's telling us as well that if you look at his heat map as well, how he interacts, he has a lot of them in the hot zones of the AFL world. And I thought his game was exceptionally creative as well. Like, it's a better game than what them stats project as well, because the involvement, he was in just about everything, and he made it very hard as well for that exit kick. If you actually, even though there wasn't the tackle numbers there, you look at his proximity to anyone in defensive 50. I think there's some things that stats don't tell us, and that's something just by watching it in 0.5 speed over 6 hours. Saw a lot of him in slow-mo. He's always there. And I think these are the kind of numbers we can expect, quite high touch numbers as well for a small forward. He's a crafty little player, and I think he's very underrated, and very underrated is good for us because it means he's not going to get the attention, so he's going to hurt people.
So what's the expectation of him this year? I think you mentioned it before. You can see him kicking 25 to 30 goals. I'm looking more at, at the end of the year, if he's averaging 1.5 goals a game, because I can see him having a game like against the Eagles where he kicks his 3 or he kicks his 4. Then I can also see him having a game where he might not kick 1, but he might have 3 or 4 goal assists. So overall, is there a target as a small forward you're looking for him to kick for you and for you guys at home as well? What are you seeing with Fisher this year?
I want to see 25 goals minimum. And I want to see the score involvements. I want to see him do what he did against Essendon, where he struck me And you touched on Phil Jackson. He struck me as his like mentality was very basketball-esque, and it was get the job done, just get the score. It doesn't matter if I kick the snag, it doesn't matter if you do. And he seemed very dedicated on doing that. That Cunningham handball, that made me happy, because one thing Carlton forwards do is they take it on themselves sometimes and you get angry.
Yeah.
He looked then, you saw him stop, and he was thinking about the shot, but he just goes, bob the handball over, get 6.
Do the team
So
thing.
I want to see them score involvements. I want to see Matt Murphy, particularly, and Fisher looking to actively guarantee 6 points.
Yep. Let's have a look at what the people are saying. Alexander says he played terrific in the scratch match. He provides great pressure, silk, and goal-scoring threat. I liked the Fisher-Cunningham partnership in the forward line. Did not expect that partnership, to be honest. There's another one in there as well. It's the Fisher-Harry partnership. I think that's going to be something we'll talk a bit more about as the year goes on. They're both left-footers. They both, I would assume, have an understanding of how left-footers move and where they like the ball. And I, just looking at that heat map that you gave us as well, he had a lot of, well, that red zone was right at the top of the goal square. That's exactly what we need from him.
You want him to live. You look at someone like Mears for Geelong, he lives at the feet of his bigs, just waiting for the crumb.
Yeah.
And that's what he did well yesterday, Fisher.
Emilio says, I remember when we drafted Fisher, Sauce had seen him kick 4 goals in the half at under 18s level, and he said that's all he needed to see. So that could have been a sign of things to come. Fisher is a small forward. Yeah, look, 20 goals minimum for me. I think he's capable of pushing to 25, 30, but I mean, it's his first year in the role. I think obviously being the versatile team that we are, I can still see him playing some minutes up the ground, but yeah, I think that's reasonable. I would have him in our best 22, 100%. I think he's really elevated himself. And like I said, there's this maturity to him now. He's not quite the little boy anymore, skinny little boy. He's put 3 or 4 kilos on in this preseason alone, is what we've been told. And
he's
I'm
got
excited.
Swag as well.
Yeah,
I don't often use that word, and I feel dirty using it. But
spunk. He's got a little.
But I watch him play, and he just has that persona now of a superstar.
Yeah, he's confident.
He's got a little bit of arrogance about it.
So he should.
The hair,
yeah,
as well. I'm loving the hair. He looked like he's like a superstar in the making.
Yeah, I think we shun guys that think highly of themselves in this country as a whole. I think we
I come from a soccer background. Like, by now, he should have his own shirt repair and hairwear. Like, I'm disappointed he hasn't. But no,
the clothing line.
He feels like he believes he belongs, and that to me is dangerous.
100%. So there we go. That's Zach Fisher. That's his preview for 2021. We're looking forward to seeing what he can provide as we move on to number 26, Luke Parks, young Luke Parks. Pom, you're going to take this one over for me. We did a video on our youngsters. We know what he can provide. We know where we've picked him up. What can we really expect to see from him in 21, given that we're talking about a defensive unit that's really solidified and has plenty of depth?
If you're going to make it in the AFL, you're breaking into this back 6. So he's got the hardest job probably in the country. Worst place to come as a young player, but probably the best place, because your benchmark is high. They're all very young players. You think Doc's not that old, so you think you've got a young backline. If I'm going to make the grade, this is my best opportunity, but it's my toughest. He's quick, intercepting genius, very good kick, takes the game on. He suits Teague. He's a Teague player. Teague wants intercepts and use it well down the back. And we saw that yesterday. A big sign of it is we're building now from the back very quickly. So Parks suits that mold. What I expect from him this year, though, is VFL development. And I think he'll be waiting, heaven forbid, let's touch anything that looks wood, injuries he'll be hoping for. He'll be hoping his opportunity will only come from an injury. And that's what we want. I want VFL, round 18. Plowman's been playing well. We're thinking of finals and saying, do we give him a game? Because but keep an eye out for him in the VFL. I reckon he'll dominate. And I reckon 2022, maybe the year that we might be having the conversation, is he in? Yeah.
I mean, look, Marchbank at the moment, he's touch and go. He seems to forever be 2 weeks away from rejoining the main group at training. In the event that Marchbank can't get up long term, it's good to have this guy on the list.
Well, the things Carlton fans get excited about Marchbank, and I never get excited about Marchbank because he's not there, but why we do is because he's very good at intercepting. He's got a good turn of pace, and he uses the ball well. That's Luke Parks. That's Parks. So Parks will be thinking, I can be Marchbank and not get injured.
Yeah. Well, he's got to come. Yeah, I feel like there's no room to be nervous for him. He's literally just got to go. We've got nothing to lose in a sense. He's got to play without fear.
Well, if you watch him play, he plays without fear. He wears his heart on his sleeve, but he attacks the ball well, and he's the modern day interceptor. Every team has one. I'll be watching his development with keen interest because he could be a player.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Let's leave it there for young Luke Parks in season 2021. As we move on to number 27, Mr. Worldwide. They now call him Brad. Marc Pittonet. He is the next.
Why do they call him Brad?
Brad Pitt. Come on, mate. Marc Pittonet. He came to the club last year. We got him for, what was it, a
packet
third?
A
packet of chips and half a packet of Chupa Chups.
Yeah, so someone bought Clarko a coffee, and he was like, I've Pittonet.
He came to the club. Cruiser went down early, and this guy played, and he played well. He's a competitor. He's in that hot spot in his career, especially for a ruckman. He had played a couple of games at Hawthorn, but just couldn't crack into the side. He's now, the door is open for him again in 21. TDK, it seems like he's not going to be playing round one, or the club have told us the early part of the season. So Marc Pittonet comes in, and if we have a look, Shad, if you want to just get up his heat map from yesterday, let's have a look and see what it says. I mean, he's had 10 disposals, 5 marks, 2 tackles, 2 goals, but it was what I saw yesterday from Pittonet in this practice match was the things that Cruiser was known for, and that was the shepherding off the ball for the midfielders. And he does a lot of these 1%ers, a lot of these things that go unnoticed, and this is something that I think is important for us. What are you expecting this year from him?
Well, I mean, at the moment, at this stage, I think we've got to look at him as our first choice ruckman. And one thing I get excited about Pittonet, and you've nailed it there, it's the things that go unthanked that he does.
Yes.
When he doesn't win a hit out, I was impressed that he uses his body, he throws it, he's not letting that midfield group bring it out. He's buying time for his midfielders to come and help him. And that is going to help Carlton out, because I thought that midfield operated really well. They did rove to Pittonet very well. Pittonet seemed to know and have a good understanding of where everyone was. He's got that ability as well to go forward, which I really liked yesterday. And you watch Max Gawn, when you have the argument about Grundy and Max Gawn, why Max Gawn often wins the argument is because he drops into the hole and defends. He does something else. Pittonet, you could rest him forward, and that was deadly because he was very good forward. And he's awkward. And if you can put a ruckman like that somewhere out of the way, causes problems. So what I expect from Pittonet, just you've got to be serviceable. You've got to win 50% of your hit outs. If you can do that, teams win. Look at Nankervis. He's not dominant, but he wins enough.
He's a competitor.
He competes, and that's all we can expect.
He's a competitor. The other thing about Pitto that I love is when there was a specific frame from the practice match where it was Pittonet, Cripps, Williams, and Walsh. And I look at the 4 of them and I say to myself, we're good. We can compete with whoever else we come up against there. The other thing that at this point in time, Pitto does that TDK doesn't have is he can be a bit of an enforcer. He'll throw his weight around. If anyone tries to get into our smaller midfielders, he's going to be there. And you just have a look at that Sard to Cripps passage of play. Sard does not get that open space if Pittonet doesn't block for him. And that's something I want to be mindful of when I'm watching him this year as to what he's doing. Because I feel like those are the things that, I've played a little bit of footy. Those are the things that get spoken about within the 4 walls from coaches. Like, you made a bloody good shepherd here, or you blocked here. And I hope that, and I would assume that the rest of the group are doing that as well. They're really appreciating him.
I think Pittonet summed up Carlton's performance. There was a lot of players looking like they wanted to sacrifice their numbers for the benefit of the team. That was one thing that I took out that felt like it was lost by the majority of the fans. It felt like it was a team effort for a change, not a one-man show with a couple of accompaniments. And Pittonet symbolises that. Let's be honest about Marc Pittonet. He's not going to be top 5 in the league. I don't think he would admit he would be the best ruckman in the league. But what he can do is be the best mate. And he looks like the best mate, doesn't he? He looks like that guy you used to go for a beer with at 18 who looked tough and no one would pick a fight with you, but he still sleeps with a teddy bear. That's what Marc Pittonet reminds me of. He's the big, good, wholesome guy who does his job for the team. And that's all we can expect of him. And that's all I expect of him. And if he wins his ruck battles, we probably destroy competition. But he's just got to compete, be competitive. And if he buys space, like you say, for Saad, Williams, you give them players space, game over.
Yeah, fair. Let's see what you guys have to say. Rocco says that we're lucky we picked him up. We are lucky we picked him up. Neck minute for a big boy. He covers a lot. He covers the ground like Cruiser. Debbie says he looks really solid and strong. Alexander says felt like he was getting dominated in the tap outs, but did very well during his bursts up forward and when the ball went to ground. I wish TDK was fit though. Rocco says you can't have enough Italians in the team. Too true, especially at the Carlton Football Club.
I thought he was French, wasn't he?
I think he is French.
Because I
think he's French-Italian. I think he's got a bit of both.
And yeah, you threw that bizarre little quip out like you learn, because you often find these weird little things. Like,
and it's Pittonet. I think Riley Beveridge was calling him Pittonet the whole game. Like he's actually done an interview where they've asked him, and he made it clear it was Pitt. Well, I'm pretty sure he made it clear it was Pittonet. So anyway, how many games are you? Like, is he a replacement? Like if TDK is healthy, is TDK playing?
Based on last night, yesterday afternoon, morning, whatever it was, I'd probably say there's a great argument to play both of them, because TDK, you look at what doggies have done. They've admitted Stephen Martin and English will play together to protect the younger body of Tim English. You've got to protect TDK. Like, I know he's exciting. I was excited when we did his review a couple of weeks ago and said he'll play every game. He's already got injured. Think of Cruiser. Cruiser would still be playing if we probably managed him better. Pittonet, he's got a body that's not going to break down with injuries every 5 seconds. Use it while TDK is still developing. So I would expect to play him near all games for me, Pittonet, and TDK to come in and do what he needs to do, because TDK can play forward as well. And Teague will have that third option. You know he'll play that third option. And a ruck is the sensiblest place to do that.
It is. It is. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what year 2 in the Navy Blue does for Mr. Pittonet. I think he can improve again. I think by the nature
Premiership ruckman.
Well, I mean, the way he plays, he has premiership habits. He blocks for his teammates. He does the 1%ers. I think he can get better from last year. What does that look like? I'm not sure. But I think someone mentioned it here. He gets around the ground very well. He covers the ground. He does. He fills the hole down back. He goes forward and takes a mark, but he always makes sure he plays that traditional ruck role. He's always a kick away from a position away from the next kick.
I'd say look at Reece Stanley. Every AFL fan says, "Oh, he's crap. He's rubbish." You speak to Geelong fans about Reece Stanley, they froth him. And look what he does. He does his job.
Yeah.
And that's all he does.
That's all we need him.
He gets battered in the ruck contest, but Geelong still dominate clearances.
Yeah.
So all he's got to look at, he's just got to do his job.
It's interesting there. Okay. Well, there's Marc Pittonet for 2021. Mr. Worldwide, Brad, plenty of nicknames. So it's good.
We need to work on a nickname because Brad's pants.
Blame the players.
Go on, boys.
Next up in the 2021 player previews is the mystery box. Another one, number 28, David Cunningham. Oh, he has it all. He has everything. The whole package is there. It's literally the body shape, the composition, the hands below the knees. He can win the ball. He can read the ball off a pack. When are we going to see?
You love it, don't you? Like,
I do. I love him.
I do.
I love him. I love him. It's frustrating because I haven't seen him play that consistent footy that I know he can, and a lot of us know he can. So let me stop talking about David Cunningham and let someone else talk. What are you expecting from him in 2021?
He does remind me of, like, my idol growing up was Morrissey from the Smiths, right? And I always wanted to meet him, and I finally met him, and he was the biggest knobhead I've ever met. So it was a big build-up to disappointment, and that's what Cunningham reminds me, because he teases you with the perfect game, and then he does nothing for 2 quarters. But he does remind me of, like, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He like goes missing for 2 quarters, then it's just that one little 10-minute burst, and you're like, God, you're good.
You just kind of want more of it.
Yeah.
You know, you just, oh my God, he had like a 5-minute patch. And you're just like, how can I bottle this up? And
it's like your honeymoon night. You just want to go back to it because it'll never happen again. But, like, if you watch his game last, and if you put the heat map up,
let's check out his heat map while we're talking about him as well. This is from the practice match.
One thing that impressed me about Cunningham, and this has been my big criticism of him, is if he doesn't get 20 touches, he's just a very pretty face. But yesterday, I actually saw there was a bit of intensity. He was working on his defensive craft. He dropped deep to get the ball. He came back. He had that work rate. And I think he's going to have a great year this year. I've just got a feeling that him, Dow, like the other week we got laughed at when we said Dow was going to have a breakout year. Let's make another big call and make that come true. Cunningham's going to have a great year as well. I think that he plays with an enjoyment. He doesn't look like it's a chore. I noticed that about Dow, and I noticed that about Cunningham. He seemed to have a bit of a grin again. And it reminded me of that Hawthorn game 2 years ago in Tassie, where he just was doing stuff.
Yeah.
He was hungry.
Yeah.
And I saw hunger from him. What does a good year look like? I think that, to me, the small forwards have a group target of 60 goals between them. So outside of Harry, I want 60 goals.
So from Fisher, Cunningham,
Betts, Durden.
right?
I want 60 goals.
Okay.
From the small forward as a collective. And I saw Cunningham and Fisher. I think that was the most important link up. They linked up a lot together yesterday.
Yeah.
And Murph, Cunningham and Fisher, there's your mosquito fleet, your mozzie fleet you want.
Yeah.
They've got a sixth sense together, man.
Yeah. For me with Cunners, there's an expectation level. I kind of am pegging it back a little bit because in my head, I've been thinking of him as a midfielder. It's clear he's not going to be playing full-time in the midfield this year. Like it or not, that's the reality in 2021. So I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, okay, I can't be looking at him at the end of a full 4-quarter effort game and be seeing 8-9 touches. That's just not going to get it done. For me, I'm looking at something like 13 to 16 touches a game, a couple of goals or a couple of goal assists. I understand you can't kick goals every single game and it won't fall like that every single game, but I just want to see him involved for longer. I want to see less of these, blank patches where he just doesn't seem like he's in it. Like I remember the North Melbourne game last year, he kicked the winning goal, but he was very patchy in that game as well.
See him up till that point.
Yeah. So I think I just want to see less of the dark periods from him and just more within the action. And he's a great chase down tackler. He puts the pressure on. He does the David Teague things in that forward line. And he's one of a few guys. And we don't have that reliance on individuals to be brilliant as much anymore because we've got quite a few talented players there.
I think for Cunningham, what's going to help him is I think Teague has got in his mind the 4 small guys. I really do. And you look at great small forward groups, they play together nearly every game. And it is, to me, it's like the midfield in soccer. The more they play together, the more they get that sixth sense. And I saw that building, Murphy, Fisher and Cunners. They seem to know where you'd be when I had the ball. You saw a lot of no-hook handballs from Murphy to players. That is going to help Cunners because Cunners is X Factor. Fisher is X Factor. Murph is X Factor. All good teams have that X factor in their forward line. So Cunners, just do what you do.
Do what you do, Cunners. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look and see what the people think.
People want.
What do the people think about him? Brian is asking, is he going to be picked for round 1? If not, is he going to struggle to get into the team? I would have him in the round 1 side. Would you?
As it stands, based on yesterday, I'd say, yeah, I can't see. The only person I can see coming in who potentially is fit is either Casbolt or McGovern.
Okay. But do you have him over like a Fogarty at this stage?
I'd say that Fogarty and Cunners are the type of players that you have on the pine because they can play a variety of positions.
Yeah.
And I think from what Teague is looking to build, I think you'll see a bench like GWS where it's full of positional players that can rotate. So I definitely would say being 22.
Okay. Alexander says, a very good game from Cunningham. His tackling pressure is underrated. Nick Minute says, I love Cunningham, but I can't see him breaking into the round 1 team. Nick Minute also believes his defensive side that lacks. Andrew says he loved Cunningham's energy and hunger for the action, consistent effort. So it seems like people are seeing him in a different way. And that's the beauty of opinion. Everyone's got a different one and everyone sees the game differently. Ultimately, it's what the club and what the coaches want from him. And that can be frustrating for us because we want them all to have 20 touches and 2 goals a game,
Oh, 100%. But I think Cunners, and like Nick Minute, I agree with him. It was Nick Minute who said his defensive pressure isn't the greatest. Was it him who said that? That's what impressed me yesterday. It looked like there was a hunger to get into that defensive set. And it looks like Teague this year wants us to defend as an 18 and then attack as an 18, which is very Richmond. So that's something that I saw Cunners work on. He was working hard to track back. He no longer was trudging. And I'm excited because if he can get in touch, get early, get involved, he's a very good player.
He is a very good player. He is. So that's David Cunningham. his preview for 2021. As we move on to number 29, Corey Durden, Blue Abroad, sponsored player, Corey Durden. That's so cool to say.
It's like a conveyor belt of quality. This show.
It is.
Fish,
it's a good patch here.
Connors, Pitt.
No, I'm very, very excited for Corey. Young fella come from South Australia. He's the prototype small forward that we've needed. We've drafted an actual small forward. We haven't tried to turn a midfielder into a small forward. This is the kid. This is the guy that we think is what we need. We didn't get to see him play in the practice match, unfortunately, but hopefully we get to see him in action next week. We've got the Saints coming up, and I'm not sure if the VFL will be doing or the reserves will be doing a practice match, but it would be good to see him. But overall, what is the expectation from Corey Durden this year?
So I can tweet Kane Corns and go, Corey Durden's better than Rosie, just to stick it up to him about the Sam Walsh thing. But no, serious. I think it's a great opportunity. Small forwards have probably the easiest route into the AFL because every year they make up 50% of the best first-year players. It's a position that is probably one of the easier ones to suddenly play day one if you've got a natural gift. And Durden is a natural goal kicker. It's all he knows. He's a forward pressure magnet as well. He suits Teague's system. Teague will have probably laughed when he saw he was available in the draft board because I would have said that would have been Teague's top 5 picks if he could have a dream draft. So Durds, I want to see him hit the ground running. I want to see this kid be putting his name up for selection round 1, round 2, round 3, being in and about because he needs to put pressure on the 2 guys we've mentioned.
Yes.
When Connors is having his 1 quarter, like yesterday, he had 2 touches in the first quarter, Cunningham. I want to be having this conversation of Connors went missing for 3 quarters, but Durden's had 15 touches and a goal in every quarter. Why do we bring him in?
Yeah.
So that's Durden's mission. I want him to lock in a spot by the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I reckon he will do it.
Yeah, I'm excited for him. I've got a nickname for him sort of up my sleeve. I'm just going to...
I want to hear it.
It's Flash.
Oh, I like it. See, the Carlton, that is a nickname. Not Brad Pitt, because he's got 2 letters that sound the same. Come on.
It's just the highlights, him running.
I
want to see him running away from his opposition like the Flash.
Yeah, check them highlights that we posted in the Blue Abroad group. That goal, that game he played, man. Tell you, get excited because he loves his club when he was a kid. Play like Carlton now. It was literally go.
Okay.
So he knows this game.
Yeah.
And he's good at this game.
We are a quick side. We are a very quick team.
And he needs quick ball. You get the ball in there quick.
Yeah.
There's few players in the AFL that can stand and race with him.
Yeah.
So him and Fish, honestly, Flagwood bound, baby. Flagwood bound.
Not getting carried away. I love it. That's not what we do here as Carlton supporters. No. So, look, I won't be shattered if he doesn't play this year. He's a first-year player. But I think he actually has the pedigree to play games this year. I really do. 100%. I think by the end of the year, we don't know where Betsy's at. There's an assumption, I think, that this probably will be his last year. We don't know. He could defy the odds again. So we want to make sure that, Corey is being an absolute sponge for Betts, soaking up all that knowledge. He's got some great people at the club now that he can learn off, and hopefully we can see him play this year.
If last year was Operation Find a Kid Simpson replacement, this year for Cunningham, Fisher and Durden and a few others is Operation Retire Betts.
Okay.
Don't make Nick Austin next year go, shit, I need a small forward.
Yeah.
And Durden was right in that category. And I think he can play early doors. It's a position that he's got the gift for. And there's smaller players out there in the AFL now kicking a lot of snags. He can do it. So Durds, for me, by round 18, I expect him to be a first staple of this football club.
I hope so, mate. I hope so. Let's have a look. What do you guys have to say? Neck minute. Corey just has to knuckle down, get some minutes under him. Chris Broberg is really looking forward to actually seeing how Corey Durden actually goes. Neck Minute says he's calling it now. He's going to be the best replacement for 2022.
Love it.
So
that's what we're about.
These are all good omens. This is what we like to see. So that's Corey Durden and his preview for 2021. Good luck, Corey.
Go hard, bro.
Next up, I wasn't going to do this one. I was going to just skip it from the group, but we have to. Next up is number 30, Charlie Curnow. He is a name.
How dare you skip that on when I'm here?
There's an emotional thing to it. Like, it hurts. No, Charlie, just hurts. It just hurts. I'm hurting for him. I'm sure he's hurting as well. It's hard to really gauge whether or not we can be confident to expect him to play. He's been out for a long time. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of investment in him for good reason. What obviously I'm going to ask you, Dan, but for you guys at home, what can we really expect from him this year?
Him coming back.
Okay.
Like to me, watch yesterday, and one thing was, I would say the biggest negative yesterday wasn't the ball move, wasn't the defensive movement, because I'm 100% sure when you watching St Kilda, they had a mandate just to go all out attack. And I'm pretty sure Teague wanted to put the pressure on the forwards to lock it in by playing such a high defensive line. There's no way we'd play that high. But I was watching the ball entries, and it was perfect to Mackay, but it was very easy to defend because there wasn't another target. So you saw invariably Essendon just pulled their tolls,
Yeah.
and there was 3 of them on Mackay, and there's not much he can do. And I was watching that and thinking, shit, Curnow was here, man.
Yep.
Curnow was here.
He makes half chances look like real chances.
And Teague wound me up by putting Callum Moore in the number 30, because I got all excited in the live stream because I thought maybe Curnow was back, and this was the mixed messaging from the club.
Because he shaved the head again
was
as well.
He was here. But to be honest, I think let's scrub him out. Let's not think about him to the bye. But just imagine this, ladies and gentlemen, at the bye. We've only lost 2 games.
Oh, my God.
Finals is in our sights. Finally, this last 10 years of shit and misery is over. And then round 13, you look at the list and you see Curnow with Mackay. Ladies and gentlemen, that guy will lead us to a final with his sexy little smile, his cute biceps.
Mate.
But no, honestly, serious. Imagine him. He kicked more goals than anyone for a while for us in the worst side in the world.
The 2018
it
team.
had Nick Graham, former medalist, as you mentioned so happily a couple of weeks ago, Moorish medal. But he must look at this team and think, I kicked nearly 40 with crap.
Yeah.
I'd kick 100.
Yeah, he kicked 34 goals in that 2018 side.
Yeah, and he had Postman delivering in the ball.
Yeah.
But that's what we've got to expect, him to get right and to bloody play games and avoid tiles, swimming baths, anything that can hurt you.
Yeah. So for me, it's
just come
in
back.
a situation like this, it's really not even about footy almost. It's just more about him for me. If he can get himself happy and healthy, I mean, I hope that we're talking about this whole Charlie Curnow injury situation in 4 or 5 years from now as the silver lining, because you had it taken away from him and there was a real scare that he may never play again. And you've got so many people already writing him off. Carlton fans already saying, they've seen it to prognosis, he'll never play again and whatnot. And, trying to diagnose it already. I hope, and I would assume that this is only going to make him more hungry and determined to play, because it's been a while. Mate, he hasn't played in
too long.
It's been a very, very scary long time. So for me, it's like, here's a goal. Just get on the park again. Get a game in again. Maybe 3 or 4. I'm not expecting him to come in like, I know you have this dream of coming in after the bye and leading us to the finals and all of a sudden Charlie's back. I'm not really expecting that from him. And I'm also not expecting him to be the 60, 70 goal forward that I might have thought that he was going to, become. Not just yet anyway. For me, he's got to play 2-3 years in a row and prove that he can stay healthy. So it just hurts. It's just such an uncomfortable situation to talk about because he's such a special talent,
I think there's no substitute for quality.
Yeah.
And he's got the ability. He's got that many positives that the one negative from this injury, should he come back and play, is his mobility won't be as strong. But watch Curnow play. Mobility was just one facet of a very gifted player.
Yeah.
You hear Cooter talk about him. Cooter says Carlton use him wrong. He should have played in the midfield. He's so gifted. He's an athlete. Players don't talk about players like that unless you're pretty good. So to me, spot on. It's just get right. But one thing that I think, and I'll say this is my last thing I'll say, Cripps said something very telling. I've noticed an attitude change in him.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. There is something, just watching him when he was talking with the chairman as well. There was a picture a couple of years ago of him talking when he was injured and he was giggling. This looked more business when he was talking. I know it's just a picture, but it looked, his body language was more business.
No, I would be too if I was sitting next to the Don, mate.
Yeah, no, not serious.
You
But
know?
a couple of years ago, he had the same picture when they were in that Sunshine Coast camp,
Yeah.
and he was giggling, and that's what
Little boy Charlie.
Yeah, you think, but if Charlie gets business, look at his brother's not nearly as talented.
Yeah.
Worked hard. If he had half of Ed's work ethic, you're talking about Lockett type territory potentially.
My thing with him is so
Just
many
get right.
people are talking about him. He hasn't said a word.
I love
that. I love that. That show. That I really do love that. I just want the scrutiny on him to just end, and it really only ends if he can get himself right.
I think it's ended though. I don't hear anyone talking. Everyone's talking about Harry. He's gone to speed school, so now he's going to be Lockett. So Carlton fans have got a new train. But I'm always will be the Charlie train. Don't worry, Charlie, if you're watching. I've always
for
got
me,
your back.
Charlie's the one. But the situation is what it is. Let's have a look and see what you think at home. Debbie is confident he'll be back for finals. I love it.
Oh, imagine releasing him just in a final.
Brad Van Doren says, given our growth last year, I'm starting to look at Charlie as a bonus, not an essential pillar. Harry, Levi, Gov, and JSOS as our tall forwards. Alexander says, Charlie Curnow makes me depressed every time I think about him. I just flash back to his 7-goal haul against the Dogs. You can't help but have thoughts he's finished. You can only do your knee so many times before you lose your athleticism. Sam believes is our injury list just bad luck, or is it something being done wrong? It seems never ending, i.e. Marchbank. Neck Minute says he has blue Powerade in his veins and he will be back helping Carlton be where we are in the top 8. So again, we're sitting here pretty much having the same preview for Charlie Curnow as what we were 12 months ago. Just want him to get fit and healthy and have a good mindset. It's almost more than footy right now for him. It's more about just, living and being able to, move. And when he's 60 and carrying his kids and things like that.
I've got a good feeling about Charlie Dorries. In my cockles.
Everyone has a
no,
good...
but in my cockles, he'll be back. This is the last time. We'll be back. After the bye, you watch.
Okay.
We'll do this show, and I'll be jumping around after an 8-goal game.
Okay. There's Charlie Curnow's 2021 preview. Good luck, Charlie. We hope you can make it back. Next up is number 31, Willow. The man who returned after... We were just talking about Charlie Curnow, the man, Tom Williamson. He returned after quite some time out of the game as well. Really serious injury and health scare. We didn't know if we were going to be able to see him. He came back in 2020 and he showed us exactly what we saw in 2017, but to another level. I'm really excited for Willow this year. Really excited.
Watching him and Doc and Sarge yesterday, forget about it, man.
Mate.
How good is this? Like, we're commenting. Like, you know what is great? And this is the audience. I'm going to confess something. Quite often I come here and just fake enthusiasm, right? Just to give you guys something. I dig deep, man. I dig deep.
You look for something.
But Jesus, Williamson,
Mate.
Williamson. Oh man, I'm like a kid at Christmas, man. And he's a big part of it. Look at his ability to switch. He's got the sexiest long left peg in the business. He takes the game on. He attacks the ball. He's everything I love about football.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant yesterday. Look at his heat map, man. It was something of delight.
Speaking of, Shad, if we can get young Tom Williamson's heat map up from the practice match. So we can see here 15 touches. You can see that left side and right side has got 2 red spots in there. And like you said, he was everywhere.
And he's got it.
Yeah.
And
he wants it.
What excites me is there was a couple of them entries where he's kicked it from 60 meters, 70 meters out to get it into the hot spot. That early ball is key to unlocking Harry. I was excited, and it's his ability as well to read the play. He's one of them guys, and I noticed this yesterday about the back line. He's one of them guys that's not panicked and doesn't kick it. And I saw Oscar McDonald, he just rush kicked it and turned it over. Let's not talk about him. Plowman rush kicked it a few times as well. But Doc, him, and Sard, no such thing as rush. He takes them brave kicks on. And I applaud that because he looks to turn defense into attack. Solid player, man, Tom Williamson.
Yeah. I think, last year was... It's no longer about, go Tom, like the young kid. Like
he's here.
He's here.
But you said it yourself, best on ground for you, wasn't it, yesterday? And I wouldn't disagree with you.
When I watched the game again last night, and you watch it over a different lens, I was comfortable at home. I'm like, every time he touched the ball, something attacking happened, something positive happened. even things like his defensive pressure on Dylan Shield on the boundary. He didn't register. I'm not sure if it registered as a tackle, but the pressure was fantastic. Everything was done right. And I've said this a lot. I'm looking at him to become that. He played that Braden Maynard type role because I think he's got that same aggression,
That's a great simile.
That same ferocity. He's a prick. Like, he throws his weight around. That Brian Myers situation last year where he gave away the free kick, Willow to Joel Selwood, and Brian Myers gets into him the very next play. He stands up in the Brian Myers tackle and gives Eddie Betts the goal assist and gets into him. We don't have too many of those guys. And I think he will endear himself as a hero. I even think he is the one that we should be giving the woof to. The old Ange Christou wolf.
He's
the kick that has.
He's got the boot.
He's got the boot of the wolf.
He's got the peg.
It's not Sard. It's Tom Williamson.
You see, Sard for me, you need to come up with something else with him because him taking off through the corridor. Stop it, Adam. But no, Williamson, man, I think he is huge to Cowan. That early entry he can provide. Teague talking about him playing on the wing. I see why.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it when Teague first came, if you remember. Lockie O'Brien being a player that Teague needs, who has got a long kick that releases it early. That'll help Teague out. Williamson is that guy. That's integral to how Teague. Watch him play when he was the coach of the Bull Ants. Watch him for Carlton. He likes early entry.
He does.
Helps Teague. So Williamson, man, get around the boy.
Is he in our round one team?
Oh, all day long, man.
Mate, honestly, about 2 weeks ago, I was a little bit iffy. I wasn't sure if, I was saying if Marchbank and Newman are fit, maybe Willow is not in the side. No, he's in.
You take him over Marchbank every day. Every day.
Yeah. He's
twice on Sundays.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what he's going to do this year. I think he works hard enough for it. He's had, we mentioned it with Charlie, who we're hoping that this break from footy makes him really, want it more because it's been taken away. And I think Williamson has already had that happen to him. So he knows exactly what every day means and to be grateful. He doesn't play with a sense of entitlement whatsoever. And I love it. Love him.
I think Doc, Plowman and Sard could be the best general defender line in the AFL.
Yeah. Well, there's a big call. It's not like you.
Well, I mean, the back line, the key defenders are already the best in the league, so we might as well have the best general defenders.
That's true. Well, let's have a look and see what everyone else is thinking with Willow. Frank believes that he says he loves Willow and his improvement has been outstanding. Sam says he also loves Willow. Massive year coming up. Love his run and carry and penetrating kick. Costa says he's stylish, classy, and he has heart. Brad says Willow, he's the Simo replacement. He'll step up again and be an absolute rock star. Adonis Destunis says he could easily play on the wing with Sard and the other. You like that pronunciation?
Mate, it's something else.
Paddy says letting Sard and Williams / SPS floating off and rebounding has Willow being one of our most important players. He can play as a Maynard type and lockdown, as well as being the tough penetrating defender we have lacked in years. He covers injuries, and if Newman gets back, adds more versatility as he can play further up the ground also. But I really love Willow's role down back, mainly due to his will, to his defensive mindset. Chris Broberg just reminds us that he's the boy from Ararat, and that he is. And yeah, we're excited. I think it's going to be a good year for him.
How good's this, how good's this? The vibe, man. I can't wait till next week when we lose to St Kilda and we're back on level ground.
We'll enjoy it while we can. That's been Tom Williamson's preview for 2021. Next up is number 32, Jack Newnes.
My boy.
He came to the club. People wrote him off instantly. He wasn't in anyone's best 22. He endeared himself to the club. He kicked a game-winning goal after the siren. He kicked double-digit goals. He just keeps keeping on. He's added a few kilos to the frame. He's very much a more of a like he's going to play more contested footy this year in the midfield. I'm not sure what we're planning with him, but he's put some size on. What are you expecting and looking for him in 2021?
One of the signings when we did it that I was so excited about, and then everyone hated him. And I kept saying I love him and he'll be good. And he finally did it. I thought St Kilda were mad to get rid of Newnes. My wife thinks St Kilda were mad to get rid of Newnes. She loved him. And he's brilliant because what he can do, and look at his heat map, plays down the back. He can play on the wing. He can play on the ball. He can play across half forward. They're as rare as finding rocking horse poo under your couch in the AFL. Players who can play that game. And he is integral to how Teague wants. You saw it yesterday. He is everywhere. If he's up forward, he's snagging. If he's down back, he's locking you down. He can do everything. He's the Swiss Army knife for footballers.
Yeah.
So for me, do what you do. I reckon he'll play every game in the AFL for us next year. I reckon every game because he's indispensable. His versatility.
Well, we've got his heat map up as you're talking there. He's had the 12 touches, the 10 marks, and you have a look. He's everywhere.
Mate, honestly.
He's everywhere. And that, for me, if you look at this heat map, this is very different to the heat maps that we've seen previously already because he's everywhere. What it shows me is the work rate. He's working to be an option at all times. And that
Always
is,
willing.
again, something that doesn't get appreciated, I don't think.
If you watch him as well, you watched yesterday, I commented it on the live stream as well. One thing I noticed about Carlton is when we had a set shot, people weren't stood still anymore. And Newnes is one of them who is really hungry. When someone's taking a set shot, even when they're running in, he's running forward saying, here, I'm here. And that is the intensity we want. He's very intense. He's always looking for the ball. Look at the marks as well, all around the ground. He was always moving. He was never stood still. And I love Newnes. Newnes is like COVID. You don't see him, but he's everywhere. And he is phenomenal, man. Phenomenal. Like, honestly, like, you won't want to play against him. You won't want to play against him.
That's so good.
I'm in pre-season, so my analogies aren't always good, but
you can't see him, but he's
there.
everywhere. I like it. I like it. There's a comment. We're losing it here. Shad has lost it back there. Who's gone red? The comments. One was said here, which was perfect. Neck minute. Jack Newnes is aggressive and wears the Guernsey with pride. Absolutely. Every time he plays. Yeah. He's one of our own.
He's one of our own now.
Yeah, he does. He plays with a sense of pride. Again, we talk about players that don't play with a sense of entitlement. He does not play with a sense of entitlement. He plays like a guy that, could get dropped at any given week, on any given week. And it's kind of nice to have these type of players on the list who may not do the flashy things, but they work.
He reminds me of a talented Jed Lamb.
Yep.
Someone that can actually hit targets, can actually play football, but he's also tough at it, and he's willing to put his body on the line for the greater good. Love Jack Newnes. Yep. Love Jack Newnes.
Paul Dyatt says he kicked a lot of goals for his position last year. Go Jack. Frank says, great call, Pom. Newnes is the Swiss Army knife. Andrew says that he will be a good red. Newnes will be like a good red for the club. We'll just keep getting better. I have seen moments of brilliance throughout last season. I love his potential. I agree with that. Alexander on fire. He's got a Daniel Rich type kick. Guy is inconsistent with kicking inside 50, but outside 50, my God, he never misses. Although I examined his stats as a wingman most of the year, they weren't that great. His goal scoring possibly covered up by his ball getting work. Curnow says it's one of his favorite players. He's
love
one of them.
Ramsay.
Yeah, he's one of them players that doesn't get recognized for the things he does off the ball. Let that be something for us to look at this year and get better at this year. You and I and everyone at home, we'll try and look for things that we weren't looking for last year that are
we always
underappreciated.
look. We're like the place though you come. Like we're like the orphanage for footballers. Like we give you your love. Do you know what I mean? We are pretty good at it, you and me. We cop some abuse because we back some really bad trains. So I'm happy that Newnes went good because we both supported him.
Yeah,
and we loved him.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was a little confused with his role in 2020, but then it just became a little bit more evident he was a bit of everything.
He's someone that you want to bring back home with you. I love Newnesy.
Yeah, good lad.
Love Newnesy.
Good lad. He's a leader without being in the leadership group as well, which is something
I'm
I
sorry
like.
for your COVID nickname, Jack Newnes. Sorry, mate.
That's Jack Newnes' preview for 2021. Next up is number 33 and the last one for the evening, Sam Ramsay. Pom, this is one of your guys.
The chef.
This is one of your guys, and I got to see a little bit of him in the preseason of 2020. I was going to the open trainings. He's got spunk. He had the haircut. He's got the sidestep. It's hard. One thing that doesn't get spoken about anywhere near enough, and given a concession, is we didn't get the chance to develop our young guys anywhere near as much as what young guys would normally with the VFL competition. So guys like Sam Ramsay, we just didn't get to see what he could do. does that mean that we've added a year onto their careers because they've had a compromised year, or like basically what are you expecting from him this year?
I think in some ways it's easier to be a young kid at Carlton now, because this isn't 2017 where it was basically like play for Carlton. If you collected
If you
4
get drafted,
stamps,
you're in.
yeah, well, if you collect 4 stamps on the back of Frosties, you get a game at Carlton Football Club. But now you've got to earn it. But I do think the VFL thing is overplayed, because these guys did train. And one thing is now they're training with quality ball users, quality players. Doc was training last year. Ramsay floats between halfback and in the midfield. So he's playing with a player that I would say is very similar to him in Doherty, in that type of mold of how he'd want to build his game around it. So I think he's had that all year with no pressure of playing games, just training and learning your craft.
Yeah.
This year he's going to get VFL games. I like Ramsay because he's got something about him. We saw it in the Collingwood game, didn't he? He took out players. He took out Taylor Adams. He squared up to him.
This was the practice match of 2020.
Yeah, he took on Taylor Adams. Now, Taylor Adams, I probably wouldn't fight Taylor Adams.
Yeah.
And Ramsay's smaller than I am.
Yeah.
So he's got something about him. He's got the My Chemical Romance haircut. He's hard not to like. So he's really want to be another guy that's going to be pushing his name into his contest, because he's a very talented footballer.
Yeah. So for those of you at home who haven't watched him, or so for those who haven't watched him, you mentioned he plays a Sam Doherty type role.
Well, so he can play down on the halfback flank, but he can also play in the midfield. So, like we talk about Doherty, could he go on the ball? Ramsay could maybe go on the ball when he gets older, but more predominantly on the outside. Very talented kick. Yeah. But he's very hungry in the tackle, loves a tackle, all about the snap.
I'm really keen to see his development this year and how much size he's put on. I would imagine he would be playing in the VFL for the majority of the year, just given his experience, and also this back line is rock solid, and
he'll be wanting to put he's one of them players I'm looking at I think will be very important to win a flag. If he should be in the first team, we need to think of ourselves like GWS. We want to make Sam Ramsay good enough to trade for a second rounder when his contract comes out, because he's that good. He just can't get into our team, and that's what GWS do, don't they? All their players that you've never heard of, like Jai Caldwell, couldn't get into the team. Yeah, they get big money for. So that's where we are now, conveyor belt. So I want him to be saying to Doc, saying to SPS, you have one bad game next week, you're going to have to get back in the team.
Yeah. Some great comments here. I like this. This is from Evani Collects. Our youth finally have a chance to take their time and develop their skill set rather than be thrown in the deep end so the fans can eat them alive.
Yeah, it's no longer Frosty set.
It's not like that anymore. Yeah, you don't just get drafted and play straight away. And that's probably something that we as fans are adjusting to. You hear the sentiment all the time. Play the damn kids, put him in. You won't know if he's going to be good unless he plays. Well, no. We have a list with structure around it now. And I think Sam Ramsay is someone that's going to benefit from that with a development program, a proper development program.
All we want to look for our youngsters now is like normal football clubs.
Yeah.
Put pressure on these big senior players. Like, to me, and I'll say this, I'll digress from the subject. Yesterday, I got emotional watching the game because Dow, for the first time in 2 years, had a smile on his face. He didn't look like he hated it. He looked like a job. And that's probably our faults as a collective, as fans, because I've seen comments this morning of, it's one game, he'll still be shit. That poor kid looks like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders in 2020. And yesterday, I saw a grin. That first goal we scored, that was Eddie Betts like. That big smile reminded me of watching my son play football in the back garden. He had it back. And Ramsay's the same. Let's not say he's going to be a superstar, because I'm guilty of saying he's going to be a superstar, but I want him just to put that honest pressure on a senior player and make me want him in the team.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So there's Sam Ramsay, Chef Ramsay.
The chef.
Preview for 2021. We wish him all the best. And ladies and gents, that's us.
Is it?
We've done well. We've done very well. We've gotten through quite a few players tonight. If you guys have any other questions you want to add before we wrap it up, we'll do that. But I do want to thank Shad again, Shad from Assertive Media. If I can ask you, actually, before I do that, we have a quick question from Neck Minute. Who gets our final rookie spot? For me, it's Ben Crocker. I'm going to say Callum Moore. I've been reluctant to say it, but I feel like we need someone on the list. We needed to replace Matthew Cruiser with a ruck, not a Henry Walsh, 18-year-old ruckman that can't play senior footy. I think we need a ruckman on the list in case TDK goes down. So that's for me. What about you?
Well, I mean, there's a reason Henry Walsh isn't in an AFL list at the moment. So, I mean, like, exactly. Imagine if we had to play a 18-year-old kid against Nankervis round 1, we'd be dead. But Callum Moore, only option, isn't it? I mean, McDonald was one of the worst things I've seen with 2 eyes. And I've seen some bad things yesterday. Like, that guy.
I feel for him. They put him in the rock. What were they doing?
I didn't know if it was like halfway through the game, I was watching it and I didn't know if it was like a joke.
Yeah.
And like Oscar McDonald was suddenly going to do an interview and go, "Oh, we told Oscar McDonald just to run around away from the ball for bants." But no, Callum Moore's a lock, isn't he? I mean, he can play forward, and we're off in forward line injuries. He wasn't bad in the ruck, but I'll tell you what, shout out to Cripper. Cripper, 5 ruck contests, 4 wins.
There you go.
You want a ruckman? He can do it.
Yeah, he can. He can. All right, ladies and gents, before we head off for tonight, as the stream ends, you can head down to the Assertive Media Facebook page, give Shad a like, give him a follow, show him some support. That would be greatly appreciated. And we will see you next week. We've got a big game, big AFLW game on the weekend, and we look forward to bringing you all the Carlton content that you need for the year ahead. So without further ado, go the Mighty Blues.
Go Blues.